My wife cheated with my uncle and tried to make me raise the baby, so I gathered evidence, exposed the affair to family, took revenge, and won custody. I used to think every marriage had its own brand of turbulence. Maybe we were all better at hiding our problems than admitting them, but in the end, I learned the bitter truth. Some marriages are rotted from the inside out. When they crack, the splinters fly everywhere. I am Arthur Bennett, 38 years old at the time all of this began. I used to be proud of what I provided. Over more than 12 years of marriage, I built a substantial nest egg through an aggressively expanding construction business, Bennett Builders and Company. I liked the ring of it. Liked how it felt to see my last name plastered on the side of trucks heading to different job sites. It made me feel powerful, unstoppable even. For a while, I actually believed my home life was as solid as the houses I built. My wife, Elena, had demanded a perfect suburban fairy tale. A bright house on a manicured lawn big enough for the 4 children we ended up having, 3 boys and a girl, shielded by a neat white picket fence. It was the picture of contentment, right? Except behind closed doors, that fence rotted from the inside. The events that tore us apart began on a Tuesday afternoon. I came home dead tired from an on-site inspection and wanted nothing more than to collapse on the couch, maybe toss a ball around with my youngest son if I could find the energy. Instead, the second I opened the door, my 4-year-old daughter, Lucy, barreled into me with a piece of paper in her hand. "Daddy, look, look!" she squealed. I knelt to see her drawing, an oddly shaped car and 2 crude stick figures, both with big smiles. She had labeled them Mommy and Uncle Dave. The whole thing bristled with bright hearts and swirling lines meant to look like a road. Something about the picture made my stomach clench. Uncle Dave, my father's youngest brother, a 42-year-old ne'er-do-well who was out of work for months at a time, had no business being in Lucy's whimsical drawings, or at least not in a private scenario that excluded everyone else. I plastered on a grin, not wanting to scare Lucy with my sudden anxiety. "Wow, that's beautiful, sweetheart. Why are Mommy and Uncle Dave in a car together?" She shrugged in her childlike way. "I saw them in your room. Mommy told me not to say anything 'cause you'd get mad." I blinked. "Oh, they were in my room? When was that?" I kept my tone casual, but a strange chill whipped through me. Lucy could not pinpoint exactly, only that it was the other day in the morning, and that Elena had tried to distract her with a cartoon so she would go away. Lucy asked if Dave was sleeping over, but Mommy got upset and shooed her out. Lucy's recollections spilled out in that innocent, matter-of-fact voice that children have. Yet it set my mind whirling. I had returned from the job site that particular afternoon, noticing something off about our bed, freshly laundered sheets when usually laundry day was Thursday. I had asked Elena about it, and she had brushed it off as housekeeping mania. Now I wondered if there was an uglier reason. Elena laughed about Lucy's drawing when I confronted her. She called Lucy adorably imaginative and said I was reading too much into it, but my gut felt twisted, and an unspoken tension settled in our house. Elena gave me these defiant, almost mocking looks whenever I tried to press her about Dave. Something about her arrogance, that subtle sneer, hinted she knew more than she let on. A few weeks later, we hosted a large Bennett family gathering. My father, mother, siblings, uncles, aunts, cousins, and second cousins all came. Our backyard was perfect for it, a wide lawn, a barbecue pit, and a small playset for the kids. Everyone showed up in a festive mood except me. Ever since Lucy's drawing, I had been on edge. Sure enough, Dave arrived wearing an open shirt that exposed his tattooed arms. He had some tacky design swirling across his bicep. He carried a smug air, the kind that said, "I'm at ease in this house." He tossed me a casual wink. "Hey, nephew," he said, patting my shoulder. "Long time no see." I forced a smile, though I wanted to yank him off my property. Instead, I tried to watch him without being obvious. Whenever Elena passed, he would make a point of murmuring something. She would laugh, flipping her hair. When she thought no one was watching, she would place her fingertips lightly on his chest. I saw it all from the corner of my eye, an electric current of flirtation flowing between them. It made me seethe with quiet rage. At one point, I spied them near the back fence behind my mother's pot of daisies. Their heads tilted close, engaged in hushed conversation. As I inched closer, I caught Dave smiling, a self-satisfied predatory grin. Elena's face was turned downward, almost coy. Then I saw Dave slip his hand onto her shoulder. A brief gesture, but far too intimate for my comfort. "Enjoying the barbecue?" I said loudly, stepping around the daisies so they could see me. Elena startled. Dave kept his composure, slowly dropping his hand. "We sure are," he said, not looking guilty in the slightest. "You throw a great party, nephew." Elena rolled her eyes at me in a show of arrogance, as though my presence was an annoyance. I was telling Dave about a friend of mine who might hire him, she said with a practiced air of innocence. You know, since he's between jobs. I held Dave's gaze. Really? That's interesting. Dave smirked, not missing a beat. Yeah, it might be good for me to get back to work. And Elena here was generous enough to recommend me. Maybe she knows me better than you think. A swirl of fury glimmered in my chest, but I forced a tight smile. Always glad to help family, Dave. Something in Elena's cold glance that day told me she was done pretending to be a devoted wife. She barely tried to hide how taken she was with him. It was infuriating and humiliating. Over the following week, I wrestled with doubts about whether I was overreacting. Elena kept picking fights about trivial nonsense, my hours at work, my conversation style, how I folded laundry. Meanwhile, her phone was glued to her hand. If I came within 2 feet, she would bark, "Respect my privacy." One day, she slipped and told me Dave had visited. He came by in the morning to pick up that black jacket you never wear, she said casually. I told him it was fine. My blood boiled. Why would Dave help himself to my jacket at 10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday unless Elena had invited him in for reasons that had nothing to do with the jacket? I took my suspicions to my neighbor, Ralph Walker, who had a security camera angled in such a way that it captured part of my driveway. I told Ralph that someone might be sneaking around my yard and asked if I could check his footage. He was happy to oblige, certain we would find nothing. But the footage from 3 days prior told a different story. At 9:52 in the morning, Dave parked a borrowed sedan by the curb. He walked right up to my door with the same cocky step I had seen at the barbecue. Moments later, the camera caught him leaning out of the window, wearing one of my black shirts. Not the jacket, Elena claimed, my shirt. He even held up a half-filled glass of something. Then he raised it in a mock salute at the camera, as though he knew someone might watch the footage. He disappeared from view inside my house. He did not emerge until 12:47 in the afternoon, 3 hours inside my home, walking out as if it were his personal fortress. Worse, he had my black jacket slung over his arm, the one Elena had mentioned. He looked disturbingly satisfied, strolling to the sedan with a spring in his step. Then, in a final act of brazen disrespect, he gulped from a bottle, my whiskey, before driving away. "Looks like I found your trespasser," Ralph said uneasily. I forced a smile I did not feel. "Thanks, Ralph. Appreciate your help." Inside, my rage climbed to volcanic levels. Not only was Dave likely having an affair with my wife, but he was also flaunting it, wearing my clothes, drinking my liquor, parading out of my house like it was a cheap motel. That night, I confronted Elena with the footage. She watched it stone-faced, lips pressed together. Then, unbelievably, she laughed. "You're paranoid," she said, rolling her eyes as if the proof meant nothing. "If you were actually a decent husband, Dave wouldn't need to help me fix things around here. Fix things in our bedroom for 3 hours?" I shot back. She arched an eyebrow. "Believe whatever you want. You've never trusted me, have you? You're always working, always bragging about your success while I'm stuck in this house. Dave pays attention to me. Maybe that's exactly what I need." There it was, her cold admission that she welcomed his attention. I wanted to throw something, but I did not. I simply told her I was done playing games and that I would find out the truth one way or another. I am a practical man. Once my anger cooled, I realized I needed indisputable evidence before taking drastic steps like divorce. So, I found a private investigator named Cardona, recommended by a buddy of mine who had gone through a messy divorce. Cardona specialized in infidelity cases. He was direct and to the point. "I can't guarantee results," he said, "but if they're meeting in private, we'll catch them." Within a week, Cardona handed me photographic proof. Elena and Dave had frequented a cheap little motel about 10 miles from our house, usually in the late morning or early afternoon. The images were clear: Dave's borrowed car in the parking lot, Elena slipping into room 108 with sunglasses on, Dave greeting her at the threshold. The timestamps spelled it out. They stayed for over 2 hours each time. My world turned inside out. I remember gripping the back of my chair, knuckles white. My first reaction was not heartbreak. It was a thirst for revenge. I felt scorned, laughed at, and humiliated by the people closest to me. My wife, arrogant, dismissive Elena, and my uncle, who strutted around in my clothes. They had gone too far. That same evening, I reached out to my sister Tori, the only sibling I truly trusted. I told her I wanted to arrange a family dinner, adults only. I needed the entire family present to witness something. Tori sounded wary, but agreed to help orchestrate it at her house. We arranged for my kids and Tori's children to stay at our parents' home that night, well away from the carnage I was about to unleash. Tori's dining room was cozy, but the mood that night was anything but. My parents were there, looking confused as to why they had been asked to keep the grandchildren. My cousins, uncles, aunts, all were seated around a large oak table. Elena and Dave arrived separately, which was interesting because they normally pretended to be distant at family gatherings. That evening, Dave strutted in late, wearing a smug grin. Elena had on a tight black dress that made her look far younger than her 36 years. She perched next to me like a queen on a throne, only giving me a sidelong glance. The small talk was excruciating. Everyone sensed tension, and my father in particular stared at me, a question in his eyes. I was quiet until dinner was served, some kind of roast and potatoes. My sister kept throwing me nervous looks. Finally, I decided the moment had come. I tapped my fork against the wine glass. Everyone, I need to share something. My mouth felt dry, but my determination blazed hotter than ever. Thank you for coming. This isn't an ordinary family meal. I need you to see something. I pulled out a manila folder from under the table and spread its contents, photographs, courtesy of Cardona, across the polished wood for all to see. Gasps rippled around the table. The images were explicit enough, date-stamped shots of Dave and Elena entering or exiting a motel room in broad daylight. My mother's hand flew to her mouth while my father's face paled. My Aunt Sylvia whispered a stunned, "Oh God." Elena's reaction was immediate and arrogant. She let out a huff, crossing her arms. "You are unbelievable, Arthur. Invading my privacy like that." My eyes blazed. "Privacy? You're cheating on me with my own uncle." Dave cleared his throat, glowering. "You hired a private eye to follow us? That's messed up, nephew. You've always been a controlling jerk." My father rose from his seat, his voice shaking. "Is this true, Dave? Elena, you're having an affair?" Elena was quick to retort, her voice cold. "What if I am? Arthur's never home. He treats me like some trophy wife, always boasting about how much money he's pulling in, never giving me the affection I deserve." She turned to me, her sneer thick with contempt. "Maybe I wouldn't have gone looking for comfort if you had done your job as a husband." Anger crackled through the room. My mother began to cry softly. Dave slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "You want the truth? Fine. Elena and I have been together for 6 months, longer, actually. It started innocent enough. But you," he thrust a finger at me, "you ignored her, so it's your own damn fault." I launched from my seat, fist clenched. "You're wearing my clothes, Dave, drinking my whiskey, claiming my house like it's yours. You're a lowlife," he scoffed. "You never had the guts to stand up to me, nephew. I saw how you flinched when I walked around your place. You're a big talker, but you're weak." "Shut up," I roared, lunging toward him. The table jostled, plate spinning. My father tried to block me, but I shoved him aside. I caught Dave by the collar, punching him in the jaw. It felt shocking even to me, but also savage and exhilarating. Family members shrieked as Dave recovered and swung back, cracking me across the face with an open palm, an intentional gesture of mockery. My teeth rattled. Then came the chaos. We grappled, tipping the table in the process. The roast slid onto the floor, wine glasses shattered. People yelled and scrambled away. My mother sobbed. My father demanded we stop, but we were locked in a violent dance of mutual hatred. Elena leaped up, her face twisted. "You animals! Stop it! I'm calling the police!" She pulled her phone from her clutch. Dave, spitting blood, broke free from my grip. He slapped me again. A nauseating wave of humiliation flooded me. I grabbed him by the shirt and slammed him against the wall, ignoring my father's attempts to pull me away. Elena, furious, marched over and, of all ridiculous moves, punched me in the lower back, then smacked me on the backside like she was trying to break up a bar brawl. "Get off, Dave," she shrilled. "He's more of a man than you'll ever be, you worthless pig." I turned, and Dave took the moment to push me off. We stumbled, knocking into the sideboard where Tori kept her fancy dishes. Several plates crashed, shards scattering across the floor. "Enough," my father bellowed, tears in his eyes from the betrayal and the violence. Elena threatened to dial 911, shrieking about pressing assault charges. Dave, battered and short of breath, tried to posture as though he had won. "This isn't over, nephew," he snarled. "If you think you can humiliate me, you've got another thing coming." He glared at me, then spat on the floor near my shoes. Exhausted, I backed off, chest heaving. Tori managed to slip between us, urging me to calm down. Dave retrieved his jacket from a chair, glowered, and stormed out. Elena followed behind, screaming at me over her shoulder. "You want a war? You'll get one. We'll see you in court, you controlling jerk." The front door slammed. In their wake, the family stood silent. The table was overturned. The smell of spilled wine saturated the air. My mother's sobs echoed. My father sank into a chair, trembling with anger and disappointment. I stood among the wreckage, blood dripping from my lip, feeling a twisted sense of triumph and seething hatred. In the days after that catastrophic dinner, Elena left our house. She ignored my calls but occasionally texted with cryptic messages, "You'll regret humiliating me," or "Wait until you see what's coming." I sank deeper into vengeful fantasies. Dave was nowhere to be found. Rumor said he slept at a friend's place or hopped between cheap motels. Then, out of nowhere, Elena rolled up in our driveway one afternoon. I watched her from the living room window, noticing how she planted her hands on her hips, an arrogant tilt to her chin as though she still owned the place. I opened the door, blocking her entry. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice still raw from the shouting a few nights before. She gazed up at me with cold amusement. "You're going to let me in, or I'll scream that you're assaulting me." I swallowed my anger and stepped aside. She strode past me into the living room, scanning the space like a queen returning to her castle. Then she turned, flipping her hair, and said, "We need to talk." "Then talk," I muttered. She lifted her chin. "I'm pregnant, and it's Dave's." For a moment the world seemed to slow. 1,000 thoughts splintered my mind. Pregnant? Dave's child? My immediate gut reaction was denial, but the harsh truth of the motel pictures overshadowed that denial. "And what exactly do you want me to do with that information?" I asked, forcing calm even as my heart pounded. Her lips curved in a sneer. "You're going to take responsibility. You'll adopt the baby once it's born. We can pretend it's yours. Salvage this marriage. All you have to do is swallow your pride and go along with it." A hollow laugh escaped me. "Are you insane? You think I'll raise Dave, kid, as my own?" She shrugged. "Better than a public scandal. If you don't, I'll make sure I drain every last cent from your precious business. I'll say you abused me, neglected me, forced me to seek comfort with Dave. My blood ran cold. You're threatening me with lies." Her grin was chilling. "Call it what you will. I'm not letting my life go down the toilet because you and Dave had a macho standoff. If you do as I say, we keep everything quiet. You come off as the father, and my reputation is safe." I took a moment to steady my trembling hands. Elena's arrogance was breathtaking in its cruelty. "No," I said, my voice quivering with fury. "I refuse." She glared, stepping closer, jabbing a finger into my chest. "Then I'll destroy you in court. The house, the kids, your fortune, gone. Mark my words." I forced a laugh, though it came out bitter. "Try me. I have pictures, a private investigator, plus your humiliating meltdown at Tori's house. The judge will see you for who you are." Elena hissed a curse and spun toward the door. "You're going to regret this." Then she was gone, leaving me numb, shaking with a toxic mix of triumph and dread. I wasted no time. I contacted my lawyer, Janine Cruz, a razor-sharp litigator who specialized in messy divorces. Janine reviewed the evidence, photos, neighbor footage, statements from the family dinner meltdown, and concluded we had a strong case for an at-fault divorce. We might even push for me to gain primary custody of our 4 kids given Elena's reckless behavior. Despite that, Elena's threats lingered in my mind. She could spin tales of emotional abuse, claim I was a controlling tyrant. Though I had never laid a hand on her, the legal system sometimes favored the mother. Janine warned me not to escalate any confrontations and to keep everything official through the courts. But I hungered for more than a tidy legal solution. I wanted Dave to suffer, to truly feel my wrath, in a way that matched the scorn he had shown me in my own home. The memory of him wearing my shirt, drinking my whiskey, and slapping me in front of everyone was burned into my mind. So I devised a plan. Late one night, I used a prepaid phone to contact Dave, pretending to be Elena from a new number. I texted him, claiming an emergency. "Dave, it's me. I'm in trouble. Please meet me at the old roadside rest stop by Highway 12. I have nowhere else to go." Then I waited. Sure enough, he eventually called the number. I disguised my voice, breathing heavily. "Dave, please hurry. I'm alone out here near the old rest stop with the broken restroom. I'm bleeding. The baby." "Oh God," Dave cursed in alarm. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." I smirked into the phone and hung up. Perfect. He had fallen for the bait. Midnight found me parked behind a dilapidated vending machine building near the deserted rest stop. The sky was pitch black, the only light coming from a flickering lamppost that illuminated the cracked asphalt. I sat in my black pickup, engine off, waiting. The adrenaline in my veins felt heavier than lead. A single pair of headlights cut through the darkness. Around 12:30 in the morning, Dave's battered sedan rolled into the lot, tires crunching over broken glass. He parked near the flickering lamp. I watched him step out, scanning the shadows for Elena. That is when I emerged. I did not bother hiding my face. I strode forward, letting my boots sound on the pavement so he would sense my presence. Dave froze, eyes wide. "Art, where's Elena?" "Not here," I said coldly. "It's just you and me." His expression shifted from panic to fury. "You set me up, you sick, twisted." Before he could finish, I lunged. I grabbed his shirt, slamming him against the side of his car. The metal door groaned, and Dave let out a startled yelp. "You want to be me so badly you wear my clothes?" I snarled. "Drink my liquor, sleep with my wife? Let's see how it feels to be cornered." He tried to shove me away, but I was fueled by weeks of pent-up rage. I slapped him across the face, a deliberate echo of the humiliation he had inflicted on me. He winced, shock flickering in his eyes. "You're insane," he shouted, his voice trembling. "She's the one who came after me. You were never around, always bragging about your damn money. You treated her like a trophy. She needed a real man, so blame yourself." I slapped him again, harder this time. "Don't you dare put this on me. You humiliated me in my own home, you worthless leech. Now you're going to pay." He tried to scramble free, but I pressed him harder against the car, hooking a foot around his ankle so he could not pivot. I pulled a pocket knife from my jacket, flicking it open. Dave's eyes went wild with terror. "Oh God, you're not going to kill me, are you? Arthur, man, just calm down." I gave a harsh laugh, brandishing the blade near his face. "Killing you would be too easy. I want you to suffer the way I have." I let him go just long enough to drop to a crouch by the sedan's front tire. In one swift motion, I stabbed the knife into the rubber and tore through, hearing the hiss of air as it deflated. Dave gasped. "What are you—" I moved to the back tire, doing the same. The car sank slightly, listing to one side. Dave tried to lunge at me, but I stood, pointing the knife. "Don't. I'll do worse than slash your tires if you test me." He stepped back, hands raised. Fine, he muttered, his voice trembling with desperation. "Look, I get it. We messed up. Elena told me you basically didn't love her anymore, that you were controlling, that you'd locked her out emotionally. I believed her, man. She said you deserved it." "You believed her?" I spat. "That's no excuse to parade around my house, wearing my jacket, stealing my whiskey. You took everything from me." His chest heaved. "So what now? You're going to leave me stranded?" "Yes." I jabbed the tip of the knife under his car's hood latch, prying it open and a little extra. I rummaged inside, slashing at a few hoses, ripping out a spark plug cable. Then I let the hood drop with a clang. "There. Now you're stuck in the middle of nowhere." He looked near tears, glancing around at the dark road. "You can't do this. It's miles to the nearest gas station." I smirked. "Exactly. Gives you time to reflect on how it feels to have your life turned upside down. You want to be the big shot in my house? Then find your way back without a car or a phone signal." I tossed his phone into the weeds, ignoring his cry of protest. "Start walking, Dave. Maybe you'll get lucky and a truck driver will pick you up." He swore, his face contorting with a mix of rage and dread. "Screw you, Arthur. You're no better than me. Maybe worse." I curled my lip in disgust, stepping away. "You're right," I said, a cold satisfaction in my veins. "I'm worse when I need to be." Then I pivoted and headed for my pickup, leaving Dave alone in the flickering light of the rest stop, his sedan gutted, his tires shredded. I drove off, heart hammering, not feeling one iota of remorse. Let him rot. After that, everything moved fast. My lawyer filed for divorce on grounds of adultery. Elena tried to push back with claims of mental cruelty, that I was domineering and dangerous. But the recordings, the photos, and statements from the family dinner fiasco painted a picture of her arrogance and infidelity. Dave, absent from town after our nighttime encounter, offered no support. In fact, rumor had it he was too busy nursing his bruised ego or skipping town to avoid further embarrassment. When the judge heard the arguments, the evidence weighed heavily in my favor. Elena's pregnancy, admitted to be fathered by Dave, further illustrated her betrayal. My attorney hammered home that she was morally unfit for sole custody. I ended up winning primary custody of our 4 children. Elena was granted visitation, which she half-heartedly attended. She eventually moved into a dreary apartment on the outskirts of our city, far from the pristine white fence she once loved to flaunt. Occasionally, she would appear at my house, trying to corner me. "Arthur," she would snarl, "you've ruined my life. Dave left me with a baby I can't handle alone." Then her voice would drip with that old arrogance. "I hope you're satisfied. Now your kids have a broken family." I would just remind her of the upcoming hearings regarding child support and invite her to speak through attorneys. My concern was only for my 4 children, especially Lucy, who missed her mother but also sensed the tension. Lucy was 5 now, old enough to see that the world around her was not as simple as she had once believed. As the divorce neared its final stages, an unsettling doubt took root in my mind. Lucy was conceived around the time Elena's behavior first started to shift. Could it be possible Lucy was not my daughter? My head spun with the memory of Lucy's drawing, the one that started it all, and how Elena had ridiculed me for suspecting anything back then. I confided in my lawyer Janine about my concerns. She advised me to get a DNA test if I truly needed closure, but warned it could complicate the custody arrangement if Lucy was not mine biologically. Yet my obsession grew stronger. I had to know the truth, no matter the consequences. So, I took Lucy to a private clinic, telling her it was just a routine medical check. They swabbed her cheek, swabbed mine, and said they would mail the results in about 2 weeks. I spent those days in a haze, torn between wanting to confirm I was her father and dreading the possibility that Dave or some other man had fathered her. Meanwhile, Elena's pregnancy advanced to its final month. She gave birth to a son in a dingy hospital near her apartment. Dave never showed up to claim fatherhood, and Elena pathetically tried once more to pressure me into adopting the child so she would not be stuck with the label of an unwed mother. My reply was a bitter, resounding no. Weeks passed. I adapted to single fatherhood, juggling the construction business with the demands of my kids. The older boys were angry and confused at first, but eventually rallied around me. Lucy, however, kept drawing pictures, always with me and her siblings in bright colors, but never Elena. A psychologist suggested Lucy was processing her mother's absence. Then the letter arrived from the clinic, DNA results enclosed. My hands trembled as I tore it open in my home office. The words on the page snapped into focus. I stared, numb. My breath caught, shoulders rigid, 0%. Lucy was not my biological daughter. She had been fathered by another man. My eyes darted over the details, verifying it was not an error. The test was conclusive. For a moment, the walls closed in, my head spinning with betrayal. Was Dave Lucy's biological father? Had Elena's affair started even earlier than I had known? Or was there yet another man in the picture, overshadowing my entire marriage from the start? Rage mingled with heartbreak, but above all, a sense of finality crushed me. My marriage had been built on lies from day one,